Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, November 19th. It has been a busy Tuesday in the world of sports, especially in the NFL, and that's where we're going to be focused on a lot of our show. The breaking news of today, of course, Joe Douglas, former now GM of the Jets, has been fired as of around noon today. We'll talk about his legacy with the Jets, why this was always going to be happening, and whether or not this was a good decision. We'll also go over everything that happened in Week 11, winners and losers, and of course, like every other Tuesday, we have our NFL Power Ranking. The top 32 teams ranked 31 to 32 in the NFL coming up for you later on in our show. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be a bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, November 19th. But like I was saying, in this segment, we're going to start off our show talking all about Joe Douglas, the former GM of the Jets as of today. That's right, the Jets, a team that I thought was all out of desperation moves, has made one more. And at this point, they've got to be out of things to blame. Joe Douglas, a guy who was already on the hot seat, his head coach, Robert Saleh, had been fired 6 weeks ago. Since then, the Jets are 1-5. It's ridiculous. That in itself shows the state of this Jets season. It is not only a disastrous season, but it's a season where anything that could have gone wrong kind of did go wrong. They went along with everything that Aaron Rodgers wanted. He has been healthy all season, and we're seeing a disaster class of a year come together for Joe Douglas and the New York Jets. Woody Johnson, the owner, has some blame to do with this, but focusing on Joe Douglas real quick, he's been with the Jets for 5+ years now. This would be his 6th year. He had amassed a record as a GM, and I know it's not all on the GM there, especially for a team that was kind of rebuilding and in a situation like the Jets were coming into his career, coming into his hiring with the Jets back in 2018, 2019, when he was hired. He has a record of 30-64. Not a great record, but he hasn't been all bad. There are a lot of good things you can take away from his time as GM for the Jets. He set up a team that a lot of people, including myself, thought would be Super Bowl contenders, at least. I know I had them making a deep run this year. A lot of that, of course, had to do with the upside of the one position that he could never quite get right, the quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. And we'll get into that in a little bit, but looking at his successes, he drafted really well. He had a draft class a couple years ago where he had both the offensive rookie of the year in Garrett Wilson and the defensive rookie in the year in Sauce Gardner. A lot of young talent has been infused into that Jets team, and if they get the right hands on the reins, if they get the right guys in control, the right coaches, the right staff, this is a team that when you look at it on paper, when they're healthy, is one of the better ones in the league. Right, we talk about a team last year that had one of the best defenses in the entire NFL, and it's a very young defense, and that's one that they kind of need to focus on, right? If they can build that defense up, even back to where it was performing in the first 3 weeks of this season before they fired Robert Saleh, this team would immediately be in a better place. But the Jets have now moved on from GM Joe Douglas, and this was always going to happen, right? This was a team with 3 wins, 11 weeks into the season that has done nothing but struggle. Like I said, everything that could have gone wrong kind of has gone wrong for this team. They've made desperation move after desperation move, firing their coach, changing who the play caller is, trading for Davante Adams, trading away a couple of pieces, namely Mike Williams. This is a team that has made a lot of kind of desperation moves this season, and they've reached the end of their rope. The last one left is Joe Douglas. Now, what I find interesting is the owner, Woody Johnson, There was a report to ESPN about an hour ago that came out that I thought that was really interesting. Woody Johnson said he doesn't expect he will bring back Aaron Rodgers after this season. That is a huge move. Aaron Rodgers is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's a 4-time NFL MVP, a 1-time Super Bowl champion, and the Jets are saying, no, we're done with him. And you can, to a certain extent, understand. They put so much into him. He's a guy that was supposed to be the face and the savior of a franchise that has perpetually been stuck in the dirt, stuck in the mud, haven't been able to get really any momentum going for that franchise outside of the couple of years with young Mark Sanchez and Rex Ryan. This is a team that has had no Super Bowls since Joe Namath won the franchise's first one all the way back 50 years ago at this point. This is a team that needed that spark. They went all in, and now you take a look at their future, and they mortgaged it to get this quick run with an aging core full of talented veterans, and it's just not working. This is a Jets team that has not caught a break, and I think there's always luck involved in football, right? There's always luck involved in any sport, but especially a team sport as much of a team sport as football is. There's always luck in the form of injury luck, in the form of turnover luck, in the form of schedule luck. You see what I mean? There's luck in every single aspect of sports, of football in general, right? And they seem to have broken a mirror while walking under a bridge. They've just cursed themselves with bad luck every single way that you possibly could have in this NFL season. Like I said, everything that could have gone wrong kind of has gone wrong. None of their investments have paid off, and now now Joe Douglas is out. He was always going to be out. He wasn't going to survive the offseason. I'm curious why they fired him in the middle of the season. Generally, firing a GM in the middle of the season is not something we see. It's also not something that's really going to change much. The trade deadline is done. The GM at this point doesn't do much until the end of the season when they can start negotiating with the other teams. Now, if they were expecting him to be gone, that's fine. But generally, we don't see GM moves until the end of the season. So this is something that kind of did catch me by surprise. Like I said, it always was something that I think was going to happen, but Joe Douglas no longer a member of the Jets organization. Hopefully he lands on his feet, finds somewhere else to go, but it should be very interesting to see what's next for the Jets. Couple theories out there. One that I find interesting. They now have vacancies at both the head coach and the GM spot. Maybe they're trying to go and get Bill Belichick to make one more run with a bunch of aging vets here in Aaron Rodgers after the 2025 season. Aaron Rodgers is done, probably not coming back with the Jets. Who knows? If they're able to get him, that defense should fix up immediately, and then this team should at least be a 7-win team. We saw that last year with Zach Wilson at quarterback. This should be at least a 7-win team with a solid defense. So if you get Aaron Rodgers playing good, which he kind of has, he just doesn't have that accuracy. That's just a theory out there. Probably not going to happen. I would be shocked if Bill Belichick actually went there, but I think that would be a good spot for him if he did decide to come out of retirement. They got a lot of pieces there, and it's not a team that you expect to be coaching for the long term. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on why the Jets fired Joe Douglas. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, winners and losers for Week 11 of the NFL coming up here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on their face shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient. Hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing. Sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't replaced, all this my sound. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, November 19th. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the breaking news that saw the Jets fire GM Joe Douglas after a 30-64 career record with the Jets after over 5 seasons with them. Big move for the Jets. Kind of thought they were out of desperation moves, but they are here and they found another one to make. In this segment, we turn our attention to a recap of Week 11. It has come and gone with a Monday Night Football game that kind of showed us what we expected. We're out here with our winners in just a second, but before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for tuning in, taking some time out of your day to talk some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, November 19th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into winners and losers from the NFL Week 11. As always, we have our top 5 winners, our top 5 losers, and we're going to start with the good. Always want to save the bad for later, so we have our top 5 winners of the week. Starting off nice and fresh at number 5, we have the Offensive Player of the Year race. This race seemed like it was all under wraps for Derrick Henry about just a couple of weeks ago. But after a couple of slow weeks by his standards, still gets into the end zone, but 2 divisional games where he fails to kind of go off like he usually does. Still, again, finds the end zone every single week, and a couple of players kind of catching up to him in recent weeks. Jamar Chase continues to play incredible football despite the fact that the Bengals are not winning a lot of games. You also have Saquon Barkley, who, another running back, arguably the best one in all of football with Derrick Henry, continues to lead the Eagles, be the undisputed best player on that team, the one that has led them to now 6 straight victories in Saquon Barkley. This Offensive Player of the Year race is going to come down to the wire, and I cannot wait to see what happens. It only continues to heat up. Another incredible performance by the 2 trailers, and they're getting closer to Derrick Henry. This should be a fun race. I still think Derrick Henry has a slight lead, but don't sleep on Chase or Saquon. Both of them coming right behind him. They're right around the corner. Number 4. How about Anthony Richardson? Anthony Richardson comes back from 2 weeks of being benched and has his best performance of his young career. Just his 11th game starting in the NFL. He's still a young player, and he seems to have learned all the right lessons from being benched. The Colts were very vague with the media when they were talking about why he was being benched, but when they came out and they said why he was being benched, what they were looking for him more off the field than on the field as far as the main reasons, and you see he's really turned the corner. Reports out of the Colts organization in Indianapolis are that he's coming to the field. He's coming to work at 5:30 earlier than everybody else, seeking out protections, learning stuff, becoming the leader that you need to be as an NFL quarterback. That's the kind of stuff that's very important for a young quarterback like Anthony Richardson to learn. He's still one of the youngest quarterbacks in all of the NFL right now. He's still learning, he's still growing, and he still hasn't even played 15, 16 games in his career. This is a guy that you can see the talent oozing out of his arm. You can see the talent oozing out of his legs. Every single time he gets on the field, he makes incredible plays, and you saw how much that preparation, the step that he was missing, came in and helped this Colts team to a 1-point victory. Anthony Richardson leads a game-winning drive in this one. Does a lot better when dealing with the blitz, able to pick up protections, able to find receivers, was a lot more accurate than he has been in the past, and a lot of that has to do with preparation. Props to the Colts organization for making that decision. I'm sure it wasn't supposed to go as badly as it did, or kind of supposed to go this exact same way. I still don't believe that everything they're saying to us is the exact reason. I think a lot of the reason why he came back now is because the Colts kind of sucked with Joe Flacco in there. But regardless, Anthony Richardson came back in a huge way. He played incredible football against a still really good Jets defense, and he is the number 4 winner of this week. At number 3, it's simply the Lions. This is the most efficient offense I have ever watched, maybe the best single-game offensive performance from a whole team that I have ever seen. 7 drives, 7 touchdowns to open it up. Then they go to the backups. They absolutely demolished Jacksonville. They have the running back duo to destroy them, and whenever you have time, Jared Goff will dissect you. He is incredible. He is incredibly accurate. That's his thing. When he doesn't have the time in the pocket, he's going to be a little bit of it. It's going to be a little bit of an issue. We saw that against the Texans when they were able to get pressure on him. But when he has a clean pocket, he might be the best at dissecting the defense. And that team is unbelievably efficient. I've said it before. I'll say it again. They just score like nobody's business. You give them the ball, they'll get in the next 10 plays, in the next 5 minutes, most of the time. That's the most efficient offense, and everything is running at 110% right now in Detroit. There are number 3 winners of the week. Number 2, Bo Nix. How about the Broncos? 38-6, a massive win against the Atlanta Falcons for them. But Bo Nix has casually seen himself rise in that offensive rookie of the year race. We talked just earlier in this segment about the offensive player of the year, but the offensive rookie of the year race kind of had been a foregone conclusion for the last couple weeks, with Jaden Daniels showing up out of nowhere and playing like a top 10 quarterback. Bo Nix has continued to just get better in every single game. And I've been on the record here for a long time talking about how I'm not a big fan of Bo Nix. But he's continuing to make plays that he needs to make, and he's getting more comfortable in the offense. Sean Payton made a great decision with that pick, and I was wrong about that one. He's a really good quarterback. Do I think he deserves to be the offensive rookie of the year? I don't think he's there yet. String a couple more of those performances together, see Jaden Daniels continue to slip a little bit, maybe we can start to have that conversation, but I do think for sure he has moved into second place in that conversation. You can at least start to talk about maybe there's a little bit of some friction there for the offensive rookie of the year. And of course, that leads us to number 1. The Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills take down their rivals in the Kansas City Chiefs. They hand the Chiefs their first loss of the season. The 72 Dolphins, also in this category, get to pop their champagne. Their record will still stand. There will not be another undefeated team to join them in the halls of history. They stand alone once again. The Chiefs were a team that, if you look at the rest of that schedule, if they didn't lose this game to the Buffalo Bills, there was not another team that I think would give them a scare until maybe the Texans about week 15. This was a team that had a real shot of going undefeated. You can talk about their flaws. You can talk about it, but the Bills came out there. They knew what they needed to do. The Bills against the Chiefs in the regular season, in general, have been the better matchup. 4-1 in the regular season against them. Now, obviously, we know their woes. We know their issues when it comes to the postseason. They haven't been able to clear that hurdle quite yet, but at least in the regular season, the Bills own that matchup, and that's something they can hang their hats on. They have something. Josh Allen continues to prove why he is an MVP candidate, MVP frontrunner in my mind. There is a lot of conversations to have around Buffalo. Maybe this is their year. They're a very talented team over there, and it's going to be really interesting coming down the stretch here, especially when we get towards playoff time. With that win, they're still in it for the number 1 overall seed in the AFC, and that bye and home field advantage through the playoffs, which would be huge. You obviously don't want to go through Arrowhead if you're the Bills, and you don't want to go through Buffalo if you're any team, right? Should be a lot of fun down the stretch of the season. The Bills are the number 1 winner of the week. We have our losers, our top 5 losers coming up, but we're going to take a quick break before that. Stick around. Here are our top 5 losers coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube. Absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the winners from another crazy week in the NFL, Week 11. In this segment, we finish up our winners and losers going over the losers side of things. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. Andre says, I didn't think they'd look even better without Diggs. We'll get to the Cowboys game in a second, actually, in this segment. So I appreciate you bringing that up. But yeah, appreciate everybody so much for sticking around talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, November 19th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into our losers. We just went over the 5 biggest winners of the week. On to the 5 biggest losers. There's a lot of teams on here that could be considered big losers. It was tough to rank them. But starting off at number 5, we're just going to go with the Cleveland Browns. This was a team that, going into the Superdome now, going against a team that fired their head coach, had lost 7 in a row before beating up on a division opponent. They come in there and they just look flat. The Browns' defense especially, it was super disappointing against a Saints team that hasn't really been able to get anything going. Myles Garrett didn't record a lick on the stat sheet, didn't get a tackle, didn't get a sack, nothing for him defensively. He is a guy that needs to be playing great football if this team wants to win, and the Browns, everything again just seems to be going wrong with them. A loss to the Saints is just not a good look for this team, and they desperately need to turn it around. Our number 4 loser, it's Daniel Jones. We talked about it yesterday when he was officially benched, but Daniel Jones on a bye week. You're just supposed to take your time, relax. The writing was on the wall. He officially is out of New York. He is now the 3rd-string quarterback. They've, in fact, signed Tim Boyle to be a backup quarterback to the practice squad. He's quarterback 3. He might not even be the active. He might not even be on the active roster anymore. You have Tommy DeVito stepping in as starter. He just lost his last chance to be a starter in the NFL. I'm sure Daniel Jones will find a place to be a backup somewhere, but he's not going to start a game in the NFL for a very, very long time. Our number 3 loser of the week, it's the Cowboys. Like Andre said, the Texans looked really good. The Texans are a team that needed this one badly. The Cowboys are falling apart. Figuratively, literally, their stadium falling apart before the game. 2 tiles from the roof fall down, one on the field, one stays up in the rafters where they had to bolt it down for safety before the game started. This is a team that is falling apart right now. Injuries are tearing them apart. In the locker room, they're not very happy. Cooper Rush they're sticking with him at quarterback. They're not moving on to Trey Lance, which is another decision that I kind of question. You have a guy in Trey Lance that is young. Maybe you should move on to him for a season that is lost at this point. You're not getting anything out of this year. You're not going to make the playoffs, especially with how top heavy the NFC really is right now. The Cowboys are completely broken as an organization. they're just going to force feed CeeDee Lamb. They dealt with some more injuries too this week, and everything, again, there's a couple of these teams this year, the Jets, the Cowboys, the Browns, everything that can go wrong kind of is going wrong. And speaking of the Jets, there they are. At number 2, our number 2 loser of the week, the second biggest loser of the week is the Jets. You fire your GM. Aaron Rodgers not coming back after 2025, says owner Woody Johnson. This is a team that infighting is taking them apart. They had a meeting to deal with tackling, an issue that they haven't been really good at all season long, especially since their defensive-minded head coach was fired. Robert Saleh had that defense playing really good, and now no one is keeping that defense together. This is a Jets team that was their identity. It was the defense. Now they're trying to just be the Packers of old. The Packers of old with Aaron Rodgers. It's not happening. It's not happening anymore. The Jets are the second biggest loser of the week, and that leads us to number 1. The biggest loser of the week, it's the Chicago Bears. Once again, the Bears are on this list, the number 1 loser of the week for the second week in a row. Another brutal way to lose a football game. Not the way that you want to go out if you are the Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears pull a Denver Broncos. They have their field goal blocked for at the last second. Another chip shot field goal attempt. It just can't quite get in as the Packers block it. That was a huge moment for the Packers, and both of these teams, the Packers and the Bears, kind of played really, really sloppy football. But you take a look at where the Bears are. Now, 4-6 on the season. They've lost 3 or 4 games in a row at this point after getting to above 500, had a lot of momentum. They fired their offensive coordinator. They looked really good on offense, actually. You had a defense that continues to keep teams at 20 points or less for all but 2 games of the season so far. This is a team that should be winning games. They have a bright future, but right now they seem cursed. They keep losing in the most brutal of ways. Everything is going wrong for them. The Bears are the biggest loser of the week as they lose in a brutal fashion the second week in a row that has happened. But let me know what you think. Who was the biggest winner? Who was the biggest loser? We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we start our NFL power rankings. We have all 32 teams to go over in a list, maybe a new number 1 as the Chiefs lose for the first time this season. We'll see what happens, but make sure you stick around. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, November 19th. If you were just tuning in, we just went over the winners and losers of the NFL in Week 11. Big week for losers, big week for winners, big week for the 72 Dolphins right now. In this segment, we turn our attention over to the power rankings. We have the first half of our Week 12 NFL power rankings hot off the presses for you. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, November 19th. But like I was saying, we have our NFL power rankings here for you. And as it says right there, we have a new number 32 overall team. And I don't think many people will have an issue with this one. Number 32, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're back at the bottom of the league. Mac Jones has now 2 straight times where he can't crack 10 points in a game. That is quite honestly embarrassing. That can't be how it goes for Jacksonville, and it's definitely not what they pictured when they had this season upcoming. I know it's not what I pictured for them. Trevor Lawrence was supposed to have a better season. He's most likely done for the year. It's kind of good to get a reset on them. The Jacksonville Jaguars are the worst team in football right now. At 31, we have the New York Giants. We've talked a lot about them this week. Tommy DeVito, the new starter for the New York Giants, he led a couple of big games for them. Had a little bit of a 3-game winning streak. Maybe he can bring some of that Tommy Cutlets magic back to New York. He just needs to go out there, play his brand of football. He's not going to win a starting job, but right now he's playing to be the backup. Came into the year as the 3rd string for the New York Giants. Now he's the starter, and he'll start the last half of the season. Good for him. Glad he gets another chance. Everyone in New York likes him. I think he deserves another shot. Giants are at 31. At 30, we have the Dallas Cowboys. Oh my God, where to start with this team? Everything is going wrong. The team is falling apart. You have offensive linemen trying to be running backs and fumbling. 2 fumbles in one play, leading to a Texans defensive touchdown. Not the way you want to go. The roof is falling off before the game starts. The owner seems to be going senile right now, and GM, I should point out. This is a team that everything, again, that can go wrong kind of is going wrong. Injuries up the wazoo right now. This is a team that just can't catch a break. And it's about time the Cowboys had a disgusting season like this one. The Cowboys are at number 30. 29, the Las Vegas Raiders. This is a team that has a little bit of positives. You, of course, have rookie phenom tight end Brock Bowers continuing to have huge days. Gardner Minshew likes to find his one receiver. He seemingly has found him in Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers, a guy that is going to get fed the football down the stretch of this season. He is going to be that offense. That defense is just atrocious. I'm curious to see what the temperature is on the seat of Antonio Pierce right now in the Raiders organization. I think there's a good chance he gets fired, but he was only hired because the players liked him a bunch, and this was not a season that you expected them to be very good in. They're probably going to draft a quarterback. We will see, though. The Raiders are at 29. 28 goes to the Titans. I'm ready to call it on the Will Levis experience. I don't know about you. I'm ready to call it on Will Levis. I don't think he's got the juice that's needed, and he's definitely playing better than he was pre-injury. There's no doubt in my mind that he's playing better than he was pre-injury. All of that being said, though, he's still not playing great. He's still not sitting there and making all the right reads. This is a Titans team that needs some help offensively. The defense, I think, while it's super banged up, is still playing pretty solid enough. This is a Titans team, bottom of the league for a reason. They're at number 28. 27 is the Bears. The Bears lose another brutal game. They've lost now in probably the 2 most brutal fashions that you possibly can. They had a walk-off field goal all set up this week against hated rival, the Packers, a team they haven't beaten since 2018. 10-0. They're 0-10 against this Packers team. They line up for the kick and it's blocked, much like last week with the Broncos and the Chiefs. Now they haven't won in 11 straight games. They still haven't given the first loss in that series to head coach Matt LaFleur, who's been there for a very, very long time. The Bears also lose on that Hail Mary just a couple of weeks ago, another game that they probably didn't deserve to win, and yet they were in it till the very last second where they lose to Jaden Daniels. The Chicago Bears are attracting misery in all kinds of forms, not something I expected to see this season. The Bears are at 27. 26 go to the Panthers. The vibes are high in Carolina right now. Coming off of a bye week, they've won 2 straight games. They're looking to win 3 straight for the first time since the first 3 weeks of 2021 when they had Sam Darnold at quarterback, who's currently doing his thing over there in Minnesota. They get the Chiefs, probably not going to be easy, but Bryce Young has officially gotten his job back. Eddie Pinheiro, now the most accurate kicker in NFL history. Congrats, Eddie Pinheiro. He's in the center of that picture. This is a Panthers team that doesn't have any expectations. That defense is still really bad, but They've got some young guys, and you can see some potential with this team. Carolina Panthers at 26. 25, it's the Jets, kind of the opposite of the Panthers. They had expectations. They've got lots of old guys. Everything is going wrong for them. The vibes are down. The Jets have the talent to win games, but all the breaks are not going their way. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have the juice like he used to, and I think he's done in New York. Maybe he completes his Brett Favre arc, heads over to Minnesota to finish off his career, try and take back what happened, try and beat the Packers. Make that little checklist like Brett Favre did. Maybe he heads over there now, have a little bit of fun. But the Jets are done. Their season is done, and there's just no optimism around that building. They're at 25. 24. The New England Patriots. The best of the worst is what I like to call this team. Drake May looks incredible. Flashes after flashes after flashes. He has played incredible football. He's a guy that I would think would be in conversations of Rookie of the Year if he had played more games. He came in week 5. He's probably not going to play enough games to overtake a guy like Bo Nix or Jaden Daniels, but still, what he's doing over there in New England is really impressive, and this is a Patriots team that has a lot of hope despite all the losing. They're at number 24. 23 is the Browns. All the losing, none of the hope. Again, we kind of have contrasting teams back to back here, but Jameis Winston is a guy that'll always keep you in it. The Browns defense is not up to snuff here, but the depleted receiving core of the Browns, the deep shots, the big plays, that's there. We get classic Jameis Winston football, and it's a lot of fun to watch. This is a Browns team that's got nothing to lose. They're heading towards the basement this year, and they're ready for it. Browns are at 23. The team that just beat them at 22. How's that for 2 straight wins for new head coach Rizzi? That is a huge game, a huge win for them. Get them off the schneid. The Saints are not out of it in the division race, especially with the Falcons struggling. Now 2 straight losses for them. One of them against the Saints, 2 straight wins for the Saints, one of them coming against the Falcons. They're not done yet. This division is still very much up for grabs, and if the Saints can find a way to get it, that would be one of the major turnarounds in all of sports. Taysom Hill, 3 touchdowns on the ground, almost 150 yards, 50 yards through the air, did throw an interception, but he's doing his Taysom Hill things, being that Swiss Army knife of a football player that we all know he can be, and when he has a game like this, the Saints are extremely dangerous. 21, the Indianapolis Colts. We talked about Anthony Richardson in our winners segment. I'm so glad that we get to see him on the football field. Anthony Richardson back starting for the Colts. They get a massive win. He leads a game-winning drive, has 2 rushing touchdowns, absolutely bowls over a man. He's so much fun to watch. This is a Colts team that's going to play close with just about anybody. The question is, do they have that magic with them to pull off a couple wins straight and find a way into an AFC wildcard spot? At 20, we have the Bengals. This is a team that you look at Joe Burrow, an MVP candidate. Jamar Chase, an Offensive Player of the Year candidate. Trey Hendrickson, a guy who's leading the league in sacks right now. And yet, they only have 4 wins. Nothing is going their way. That defense is atrocious. Oh my God, that defense is awful. Chase Brown really stepped up, especially in this game in the receiving category. He has been a revelation for them offensively. This is a team that is so good offensively that you don't want to count them out. But with the state of that defense and with them falling further and further behind the Pittsburgh Steelers, having suffered 2 losses to the Baltimore Ravens, this is a team that I have a lot of trouble thinking is going to make the playoffs. But they're a team you don't want to let in because they can put up 50 on just about anybody. The Bucs at 19, they had a bye week. It's a tough bye week for them. A couple of teams jumped them this week. They get Mike Evans back. That's going to be huge. They've played a couple of close games without him. Cade Otton's played a huge role. Baker Mayfield's played good football. But now they get Mike Evans back. They look to turn their season around. I think they can do it. I think this is a team that can turn their season around. We will just have to see. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are at number 19. And again, not out of that division race because the Falcons just keep losing games. Speaking of those Falcons, they're here. This is a team that has all of the talent. That defense is awful, though, especially the secondary. Not what I expected to say after making a couple of key pickups. It's re-signing A.J. Terrell, one of the best cover corners in football, revamping that safety duo, adding Justin Simmons to Jesse Bates. Those are two really big names at safeties. It just has not worked out in the secondary, and the pass rush isn't getting home. So when you have all of that combined, this is a defense that's getting absolutely torched through the air. The Falcons need to be better. Kirk Cousins needs to be more consistent. He just has not been that all season long. 17 is the Seahawks, a walk-off win kind of for them against the division rival San Francisco 49ers, a game that the Seahawks quite frankly had to win to keep their playoff hopes alive. Geno Smith has been playing really good football. The defense over the last couple weeks is all the way back. It's something we've been waiting on for a while, something they had not quite gotten since the first 3 weeks of the season, but now they're starting to get there. Seahawks looking to go on a little bit of a run here. As long as the defense can keep playing like that, I think they have a shot. Seattle Seahawks at 17 after a massive win against the 49ers. But we're going to take a quick break before we get to the top half of the NFL. When we come back, top 16 spots in the NFL we'll go over here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, November 19th. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the first half of the NFL Power Rankings, spots 32 to 17. We're going to finish up that ranking here in a second, but before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, November 19th. But like I was saying, we're going to finish up our NFL Power Rankings here. As you can see, the Seahawks were where we last left off at number 17, and continuing from there, number 16, it's the Denver Broncos. How about the Broncos continuing to win football games and win them dominantly? That defense has been crazy without a lot of big names on them. The pass rushers have been awesome. They don't really have a lot of big names on that defensive line. You still have Pat Surtain in the secondary, who's been locking everybody's top receiver down, but that offense under Bo Nix, they're starting to get the run game going a little bit. Javonte Williams finds the end zone again. You're getting him, Bo Nix is getting comfortable with his weapons on the outside. Vele having a huge season. Cortland Sutton back to doing what he does, making those highlight 50-50 ball catches like you expect him to do. This is a Broncos team that is on a roll right now, and Sean Payton is coaching out of his mind. 15. The Los Angeles Rams. The Rams, they're a team that, I really like this Rams team, right? They escape with the win in New England, 28-22, a little bit closer than you want. They're still a very hot team. They're still on the cusp of the playoffs. They're a team that I think will find a way in, and when they get in, it's going to be very scary for the rest of the league. That defense is playing really good ball right now. Matthew Stafford is getting back to himself with his weapons back. He hit a couple of huge plays to Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, who both had huge games, and you can see the upside of that offense in games like this. At number 14, we have the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins are on a little bit of a roll now, 2 straight victories for them. This one against the Raiders, I know, doesn't really count as much because it's the Raiders. They're not very good, but Tyreek Hill getting back involved in that offense. We see Waddle getting involved in that offense. Jonnu Smith has really come in and been a huge part of making this team go. Tua looks more comfortable. The run game's starting to get going a little bit. Everything that wasn't working without Tua is starting to come back and entering a tough stretch of schedule for them. They're going to need it because they're not out of the AFC playoff race yet, at least as a wild card. They can still find a way in. 13, it's the Vikings. Maybe I'm lower on this team than a lot of other people are. That defense continues to play great. They beat the Titans. They beat the Jags the last couple weeks. They haven't looked their greatest offensively, and I still need to see more out of Sam Darnold when they go up against some of these better teams that aren't sitting at the bottom of the league like the Titans and the Jags. But still, team that keeps winning games when they're supposed to. That's part of your job. That's part of why you're a playoff team, and that's part of why you're in the top 15. The Vikings are at 13. 12, we have the Commanders. 2 straight losses necessitate a big drop, despite playing against 2 top 5, top 10 teams right now. The Washington Commanders, I think the rib injury is really hampering Jaden Daniels just a little bit. They get some of that running game back, but they weren't able to get any of that going on the ground against the Eagles. They're going to need to step up. They've struggled a little bit down the stretch here. We will see what happens. I think this is still a very good Commanders team, and they're not out of that division race yet. Only 1.5 games back, although the Eagles are really hot, and it would have helped if they got a win on Thursday night. 11, it goes to the Texans. Joe Mixon, 3 touchdowns. That run game, when it goes, this Texans team is completely different. They get everything going when that run games go, especially with Joe Mixon. They got Nico Collins back. That was huge for them, being able to stretch the field. Boxes weren't as crowded. That was partly why Joe Mixon had such a huge game. The other part is that they're playing an atrocious Cowboys defense that can't stop a nosebleed right now. This is a really good Texans team. I'm struggling to take them seriously because, yet again, they struggled in the second half. It wasn't as bad as it was the last 2 weeks where they weren't able to get anything up on the board, but still, an offense still kind of got stalled in that second half, even against a bad Cowboys defense, and it's a little bit concerning for me. But they continue to get better. The offensive line only allowed 1 sack. That's the most concerning part. It's that offensive line for me. Still a good team. They're just outside the top 10, though, at number 11. Hitting into the top 10, at number 10, we have the San Francisco 49ers, a tough loss for them in Seattle. That defense without Nick Bosa wasn't able to get any pressure, and that's where you saw Seattle start to step it up and turn on the heat. The San Francisco 49ers, a very injured team. They did not have Kittle, and I didn't want to punish them too much for it, but still, this is the kind of game that they had been playing all season long. They get Christian McCaffrey back. It didn't change as much as I thought it would. This is still a very good team. They're still a team that I think will make the playoffs, but they're kind of playing with fire right now, and they need to right the ship as soon as possible. At 9, we have the Cardinals. They were on a bye week. Didn't want to punish them. They've still won 4 straight games. In 3 of those 4 games, they haven't allowed a touchdown, and that offense continues to hum. I'm very excited to see where this Cardinals team goes. I'm really high on the Cardinals. At number 8, it's the Packers. A miraculous win in a game they probably shouldn't have won. To be fair, the Bears probably shouldn't have won that game either. Neither one of them really played great football. But when you look at the Packers, they're a team that just finds a way to win, and that's very important. Very important. This defense continues to play great. The offense, especially at the goal line, is a little bit concerning for the Packers. They left 2 touchdowns on the board going for it on 4th down and goal. Weren't able to punch it in. I still think this is a great Packers team. They're still in the top 10, but they're no longer in the top 5. At number 7, it's the Steelers, and I've been slow to raise the Steelers all season long, and I'm still going to be. This is their 2nd win of the season where they did not score a touchdown. That's very concerning to me. We can talk about how that means the defense is great, and sure it does. It's a division game. That means a lot. This is a defense that's playing incredible. But it's very concerning when the offense just goes into a shell like this. I know you played a great team, and it worked against the Ravens. It worked against the Falcons. Maybe it worked against bird teams or something. But still, this is very, very concerning trend for them. That it's happened twice in a season is not good. I like that they're using Justin Fields as a rushing quarterback. I like that they're getting him in there. They cracked the top 10 for the first time all season, and maybe that makes me a little bit of a slow poke for them. But I think 7 is fair. I thought about putting them all the way into the top 5. I wasn't able to do that to myself, though. The Steelers are at number 7. Number 6 is the Chargers. This is another team I considered putting in the top 5. The Chargers, I was very concerned with that defense. I know they went up against a super high-powered offense in the Cincinnati Bengals, but the second half of that game was awful. The first half was flawless for them. Nothing could go wrong, but especially that third quarter. The Bengals tied up that game. It was a 27-6 lead heading into halftime. They scored that third touchdown to make it 27-27 with 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. That's 18 minutes of football where the Chargers just sucked. Defensively, offensively, they couldn't get anything done. That is concerning against a defense like the Bengals. They need to get more than that, and they need to play a consistent half. Justin Herbert's still playing really good ball. This is a Chargers team that I still think is really, really good, but still a little concerning, especially in that second half. At number 5, we have the Baltimore Ravens. They take a tough loss to a division opponent. You can talk to me all day long about how they shouldn't be in the top 5, but as long as you have Lamar Jackson, potential MVP, Derrick Henry, potential offensive player of the year, that is a team that I cannot move out of the top 5. This is a very, very good Ravens team. They're still going to make the playoffs despite that loss to the Steelers. Not their best game, but it was a division matchup on the road, so I'm not going to punish them too severely for it. They fall out of the top 3, and they're out of that top-tier contender area, but still in the top 5. At number 4, we have the Philadelphia Eagles, another team that I admittedly have been a little slower than I probably should have on moving them up. 6 straight wins for them. Saquon Barkley playing elite football right now, the best of his career. He's averaging over 100 yards per game for him. This is incredible what you get to see him do on a nightly basis. Saquon Barkley special. Jalen Hurts has stopped turning the ball over, and that is the key to this victory. After the bye week, they've stopped turning the ball over, and like I said, that was the biggest issue for this Eagles team. They are going to be a very dangerous team come playoff time. Do not sleep on the Eagles. Do not think the Lions are just going to be that number 1 seed in the NFC, because that team has shown more weaknesses to me than the Eagles have in the last couple of weeks. At number 3 is the Chiefs. They suffer their first loss of the season. Finally, they've been dethroned. No longer at number 1. We have our first change at number 1 of the season. The Kansas City Chiefs fall 2 spots to number 3. They lose to the Bills. A tightly contested game. Josh Allen playing like the MVP that he is. This is what we expect out of Allen and Mahomes. It's super cool to see that even in these matchups in the regular season, it means so much. That stadium that up in Buffalo was rocking. It was such a fun environment to watch, and the Chiefs couldn't get it done over there. Undefeated season, no longer. Chiefs couldn't pull out enough devil magic to win this one. The run game wasn't going, and I think that was the biggest issue for them. When the run game doesn't go for this team, which they haven't really had an issue with all season long, it kind of struggles a little bit. But Chiefs still at number 3, still very respectable at 9-1. The Buffalo Bills, the team that knocked off the Chiefs, are here at number 2. Josh Allen getting crowned potential MVP for him. He made an incredible play to seal the game, a gutsy call for them on 4th down, going for it, and he scores a touchdown on a broken play. A huge, huge win for the Buffalo Bills, showing they might be the best team in the AFC. Crazy to think about there. The AFC, it's very muddled at the top. The Buffalo Bills at number 2. And that, of course, leaves our number 1 team, the Detroit Lions. I talked about how efficient that offense is, and I've talked about it a lot. That is the most efficient offense that I've ever witnessed in my entire life. It is scary how efficient that offense is. It is so much fun to watch that run game combo with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. In the pass game, you, of course, have Amon-Ra St. Brown, but you have the speedster And Jamal Williams over there. Excuse me, Jamison Williams. I apologize. This is a really good Detroit Lions team. They lose Alex Anzalone. That is going to sting. He's been having an incredible season. They've lost a lot defensively. Hopefully they can come and fix that. But for now, the Lions are at number 1, a spot that a lot of people have been thinking that they should be for a while. They finally claim that number 1 spot. The Lions are the best team in football. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this power rankings. I'll run through the top 10 real quick. At number 10, we've got San Francisco. 9, the Cardinals. 8, the Packers. 7, the Steelers. 6, the Chargers. 5, the Ravens. 4, the Eagles. 3, the Chiefs. 2, the Bills. And number 1, the Lions. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. I appreciate everybody so much for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow talking all of the breaking news around sports, some big news around hockey. We'll have NBA power rankings, as well as a big matchup between the Cavs and the Celtics tonight. Can the Cavs stay undefeated? We will see. We'll talk about all of that and more tomorrow. Same time, same place. But thank you so much for listening. You all have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.